The stars trembled that night. From the bridge of the Imperial flagship Aurelius, Admiral Kale watched as the galaxy's most formidable armada collapsed into chaos. The Zareth Dominion, a ruthless enemy of the Empire, had arrived with a fleet twice the size of anything the Imperials could muster. Their warships, black and jagged like predators in the dark, had cut through the Empire's defenses with terrifying ease. The Imperial High Command had promised victory. They had boasted of discipline, of centuries of dominance, of fleets unmatched. But now, in the cold silence of space, panic spread like wildfire. Kale's voice trembled as he spoke. Shields collapsing across the line, flank squadrons destroyed. If we hold another hour, it will be a miracle. On the throne world, light years away, the Imperial Council sat in grim silence. Every hollow feed showed the same thing. Burning, wreckage. Soldiers screaming their last, captains begging for reinforcements that would never come. The Empire had grown arrogant. It had forgotten what true fear was, and now fear had returned. The Emperor rose slowly, his robes dragging across the floor of the council chamber. His eyes were bloodshot, his voice heavy with desperation. There must be another way. The silence was unbearable until one of the elder historians, an old, nearly forgotten man named Lorath, spoke with hesitation. There is a legend, buried deep in the archives, a weapon built long before the Empire was born, a weapon so powerful our ancestors swore never to awaken it again. The council turned sharply toward him, disbelief etched on every face. "Stories," spat one general. "Old myths." But Lorath's voice did not waver. "Not myths, records. I've seen fragments." They called it Project Eclipsera, a power forged in the Dark Age, when entire star systems burned in wars long erased from history. It was hidden, buried on the forgotten world of Kaleth, sealed so none would dare wield it again. The chamber filled with murmurs, anger, and denial. But then came another scream over the war feed. An entire Imperial fleet reduced to ash in minutes. The Emperor's fist slammed against the throne. "Find it! Unseal it! Now!" The search began. Frantic ships dove into forgotten star charts. Navigators unlocked forbidden coordinates. And soon, an expedition was sent into the dust of the old galaxy. They found it. On the dead world of Kaleth, beneath crumbled temples and broken skies lay a vast chamber, sealed in black stone and metal, humming with power even after millennia. At its center slept a colossus, a machine unlike any in the known galaxy. Its surface glowed faintly with lines of crimson light, and its very presence seemed to thrum with hunger. It was not a ship, not a weapon in the conventional sense. It was something more, a construct of forgotten science, a shard of godhood. Given form, back on the battlefield, the Empire's fleets were on their last breath. Admiral Kale watched his men die, watched ships vanish into fire. His voice cracked as he whispered to himself, "This is the end." But then, the void changed. Tear opened in the darkness. From it, rising like a titan from the abyss, came the awakened weapon, Eclipsera. Its form dwarfed even the largest warships. Its eyes, if they could be called that, burned with ancient fury. Silence fell across both fleets as it appeared. Even the Dominion ships, ruthless and merciless, hesitated. And then it moved. The first blast was not light, nor plasma, nor anything the galaxy understood. It was a ripple, a distortion of reality itself. The nearest Dominion ships didn't explode. They unraveled, collapsing into fragments of atoms scattered across the void. Another wave followed. Whole squadrons vanished. Capital ships cracked open like eggshells. The Dominion's proud dreadnoughts, each the size of a city, were erased as if they had never existed. The enemy panicked. Admirals screamed orders. Fleets scattered, fleeing in every direction. But Eclipsera was merciless. With every pulse of its core, another dozen ships were erased. In less than an hour, the mighty Dominion armada was gone, nothing but drifting debris and the silence of death. The battlefield, once a burning storm, had become a graveyard. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Kale could only stare. His crew wept openly, some from relief, others from sheer terror. We've won," whispered one officer. But Kale did not feel like a victor. His chest was heavy, his hands trembling. Victory had come not from courage, not from strategy, but from a power they did not understand, a power that should never have been awakened. He whispered, more to himself than anyone, "What have we unleashed?" On the throne world, the council erupted in cheers. The Emperor, face lit by the flickering images of their salvation, declared, "The Empire endures. Our enemies are ash. Long live the Empire." The citizens rejoiced, unaware of the truth. To them, it was a miracle. To the leaders, it was salvation. But to Lorath, the old historian who had spoken of the weapon, there was only dread. He stood in the shadows of the chamber, his voice shaking as he whispered words no one else heard. They swore never to awaken it, because it was not made for war. It was made for judgment. In the depths of space, Eclipsera drifted silently. Its crimson light dimmed but did not fade. It had tasted blood again after millennia of silence, and deep within its core, something stirred. Not machinery, not code, but will. The Galactic Empire celebrated its impossible victory. Parades lit the skies, songs of triumph filled the air. The Dominion was shattered, and the galaxy trembled before the Empire once more. But history, the kind buried too deep for comfort, had been rewritten. For the true terror was not the Dominion fleet that had been annihilated. It was the forgotten power that now remembered it still existed. The galaxy had grown used to the Empire's dominance. For centuries, its banners cast long shadows across 1,000 stars. Its fleets were unchallenged, its rule absolute. But one night, beneath the endless black of space, the illusion of invincibility shattered. The Varen coalition, the Empire's most bitter rivals, had united for the first time in history. 10 species, each once too fractured to stand alone, now marched together with one goal: to crush the Empire's heart in a single blow. Their armada filled the void like a storm. Thousands of warships gleamed with silver plating and blue engines, their weapons charged with enough firepower to reduce entire planets to ash. Admiral Serath, commander of the Imperial Defense, stood rigid on the bridge of the fortress world Orathion. His officers shouted reports, each one worse than the last. "The outer defenses are collapsing! Sector 3 fleets destroyed! They're breaking through!" Serath's face was pale. He had fought in a dozen wars, but never had he seen a force like this. The Empire's might was crumbling. Defeat was not just possible, it was inevitable. Far across the stars in the gilded halls of the Imperial throne, the Emperor listened in silence as panicked voices flooded the chamber. His advisors begged for retreat, for negotiation, even surrender. But surrender was death. He knew it. And then, in the chaos, an old memory stirred. The Emperor rose, his voice low and deliberate. There was a pact, long ago. A pact written in blood and sealed in silence. Do you remember? The council froze. The room fell into uneasy silence. No one wanted to speak of it. Finally, one advisor dared to whisper, "Sire." Those beings were exiled, banished from the galaxy. They were too dangerous. To call them back would be madness. Another interrupted. But the Emperor's eyes blazed. Madness or survival. Choose. That night, hidden from public view, the Emperor ordered the ancient signal sent. It was a message that had not been spoken in 10,000 years. Words older than the Empire itself. It was a call, not to allies, not to friends, but to monsters the galaxy had tried to forget. On the edge of known space, beyond ruined sectors and broken stars, the exiled ones stirred. They were called the Cathari, though most in the galaxy knew them only as legends. Tall, silent beings with eyes like burning coals and ships that shimmered as if woven from shadows. They had been cast out ages ago, condemned for crimes too great to name. Some whispered they had devoured entire civilizations, others that they had dabbled in powers that should never exist. Whatever the truth, they were feared and forgotten. Until now, the signal reached them, and they answered. On the battlefield of Orathion, Admiral Serath prepared for his last stand. The Veyran fleet had broken the Empire's defenses. Their capital ships loomed over Imperial lines, ready to strike the killing blow. And then the stars rippled. From the void emerged ships unlike any Serath had ever seen. They were long and jagged, their surfaces alive with shifting patterns of light. They moved in silence, gliding like predators, their presence suffocating. The Cathari had returned. For a heartbeat, both sides paused. Even the Veyran admirals faltered, their voices trembling. What are those? The answer came not in words, but in devastation. The first Cathari vessel opened fire. It was not plasma, not missiles, not anything the galaxy recognized. It was a ripple of darkness that swallowed light itself. The nearest Veyran cruiser twisted in on itself, crushed to nothing. A second ripple followed. A dozen warships vanished. Entire formations broke apart as panic erupted. The Veyran fleet tried to fight back. Thousands of weapons fired, beams and torpedoes slamming into the alien ships. But the Cathari vessels bent space around themselves. Weapons passed harmlessly aside, as though the universe itself refused to touch them. Then came the counterattack. Columns of searing red light carved through the Veyran armada. Massive capital ships split in half. Carriers, each carrying tens of thousands of soldiers, ignited like dry leaves in fire. The battlefield became a slaughterhouse. Admiral Serath watched in stunned silence. His officers whispered prayers, some in gratitude, others in terror. "They're saving us," one murmured. But Serath's jaw tightened. He knew the truth. They were not saving the Empire. They were only destroying its enemies. And when that was done, who could say if they would stop? Within hours, the mighty Veyran coalition was no more. Their fleets, once proud, were reduced to drifting wreckage and frozen corpses. Survivors fled in every direction, scattering like frightened insects. The Empire had been saved, but at what cost? When the last Veyran ship was destroyed, the Cathari fleet turned. For a moment, every Imperial soldier braced for death. But instead of striking, the shadow ships withdrew, vanishing once more into the void. A single message was left behind, etched into the very stars as their vessels disappeared. The debt is paid. Remember why we were exiled on the throne. World, the Emperor declared victory. The Empire had triumphed against impossible odds. Citizens filled the streets, celebrating, never knowing the truth. To them, the Emperor had saved the day. But in the quiet halls of the council, fear lingered. The advisors whispered of what they had done. They had awakened old demons, invited back the very power their ancestors had sworn to banish. The Emperor sat alone on his throne, staring into the shadows. He had won. He had preserved his empire. Yet deep inside he wondered, had he saved his people or doomed them? And across the void, in realms beyond mortal reach, the Cathari watched. They had tasted battle again. They had remembered the thrill of destruction. And though they had withdrawn, their exile no longer bound them. The galaxy would learn soon enough that forgotten powers never stay forgotten forever. The Galactic Empire was burning. For centuries, the Empire had ruled the stars with iron fleets and unyielding strength. Its banners hung across 1,000 worlds, its enemies broken beneath relentless conquest. But now, at the height of its arrogance, the Empire faced a coalition it could not defeat. The Terran Dominion had come with a fleet of titanic warships, each bristling with weapons of unimaginable power. The Imperial lines had faltered, broken, and collapsed. Entire sectors fell within. Weeks. On the throne world, panic spread like fire. Admirals shouted, generals quarreled, citizens wept in the streets. For the first time in living memory, the Empire trembled, and in their desperation, they turned to a name nearly erased from their records, a forgotten species, a people once considered too small, too weak, too unpredictable. Humans. The council chamber was filled with outrage when the Emperor spoke the word. "Impossible," hissed General Draith. They were discarded centuries ago, nothing more than savages from a backwater world. But the Emperor's gaze was sharp, his voice steady. Savages? Or survivors? You forget why they were abandoned. Not weakness, but fear. Our fear of them. An uneasy silence fell. The truth lingered unspoken. Humanity had once served as soldiers for the Empire. They had been conscripted, tested, studied, and then hidden away, their existence scrubbed from history. The Empire feared what humans might become if left unchecked, and now, in the Empire's darkest hour, the Emperor whispered the order. Find them. Bring them back. The search led to a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a system long dismissed as unimportant. There, on the blue-green world called Earth, humanity thrived in silence, rebuilding, waiting. When the Empire's envoy arrived, the humans did not bow. They listened, they weighed. And when the Emperor's plea was finally spoken, help us or watch us fall, the humans agreed. But not out of loyalty, out of opportunity. On the battlefield above Orathion Prime, the Imperial fleet faced annihilation. The Dominion's warships loomed like predators, their weapons primed to strike the final blow. Admiral Kale's voice cracked as he gave the order. Prepare for last resistance. And then, something unexpected happened. A ripple tore through the void. Ships emerged, angular, metallic, primitive by galactic standards, smaller than Imperial cruisers, less armored than Dominion dreadnoughts. Human ships. The Dominion laughed. Entire. Fleets broadcast mockery across the comms. Pathetic. You call these allies? But laughter died quickly. The humans struck first. They moved differently, erratic, unpredictable. Instead of rigid formations, their fleets broke apart into swarms, weaving through enemy fire like hunters through tall grass. Where Imperial and Dominion fleets relied on sheer size and power, humans relied on speed, cunning, and misdirection. Their weapons were not elegant beams of plasma or gravity lances. They were brutal. Kinetic slugs accelerated to impossible speeds, warheads carrying shaped charges, railguns that ripped through shields with sheer physical force. The Dominion's defenses, built to counter the energy weapons of the galaxy, faltered under the relentless hammer of raw, primitive violence. One by one, Dominion ships fell, pierced, broken, burning. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Kyle stood frozen. "By the stars," he whispered, "they fight like predators." An officer beside him nodded in disbelief. They adapt. Every time the enemy adjusts, the humans change tactics instantly. It's as if war itself is in their blood. The battlefield became chaos. Dominion commanders, used to predictable patterns, found themselves overwhelmed by feints, traps, and ambushes. Human frigates dove straight into the heart of capital ships, exploding at point-blank range. Carriers unleashed drones that moved with hive-like precision. Battleships unleashed nuclear fire in waves so devastating, even hardened Dominion shields collapsed. The tide turned. Within hours, the once invincible Dominion fleet was shredded. The galaxy watched in silence. From the throne world, broadcasts carried images of human fleets tearing through the enemy like wolves among cattle. Citizens who had never heard of humanity now whispered their name in awe and fear. They were forgotten, one senator murmured, but not gone. When the last Dominion ship was reduced to wreckage, the humans did not cheer. They regrouped. In eerie silence, their fleet hovering above the shattered battlefield like a pack of predators that had tasted blood and hungered for more. The Imperial Council erupted in celebration, but beneath their joy was unease. General Drath leaned toward the Emperor. "We have won. But at what cost? You saw it. They obeyed us today. Will they obey tomorrow?" The Emperor said nothing. His eyes lingered on the hologram of the human fleet. He saw not subjects, not allies, but a power too dangerous to chain on. The bridge of the largest human vessel, Commander Elias Vare, stood with arms crossed, watching Dominion wreckage drift through space. His officers awaited orders. "Report to the Empire," one said. "Tell them the enemy fleet has been annihilated." Elias smirked. "Yes, annihilated by a forgotten people they once abandoned." His gaze hardened. "They needed us. And now they will never forget us again." The Empire had panicked, and humanity had answered. The Dominion was broken, the galaxy saved from their conquest. But whispers spread across the stars, whispers that carried faster than light. The forgotten ones had returned. They had not just fought, they had dominated. And the galaxy realized, with a chill that no victory parade could erase, the most terrifying power of all was not the Dominion, nor the Empire. It was the humans who had been left behind.